By almost every measure, the American economy and American workers are better off than when I took office.
Better off than before? Well, this week, we found out the job market is stalling again, and median household income is down nearly $3,000 under President Obama. So are you better off or not? Hi, everybody. I'm David Aslan. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus and find out with Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Elizabeth McDonald, Mike Ozanian, Rick Unger, and John Tamny. So, Steve, on Monday, the president said by almost any measure, the economy was better. On Friday, we get these lousy jobs numbers.
Yeah, it's like a manager of the New York Mets saying they're telling fans they're headed for the World Series. Median incomes are down. Job creation still remains punk. Trickle-down economics does not work. And the top 10% of income earners, yes, they've done well under President Obama, but the other 90%, they're stalled and feel they're falling behind.
And, Rick, the American public, by a pretty good-sized majority, 58% say the nation's job situation has not turned the corner, that it's going to get worse. 55% say the nation's economy overall is not turning the corner. It is going to get worse before it gets better. So who's right, the president or the American people?
Well, look, I think the president had it right when he said that by any measure the economy's improved since he got there. I'm afraid it's a swing and a miss, though, when he says that the workers doing better.
But look at the median, Rick, look at the median income. People have almost $3,000 less in their pocket. That's why they feel worse off.
Yeah, but finishing the first thought, that he isn't right. We see by the numbers that workers are not doing better. We have less people seeking jobs than we had before. As to, though, the thing you're raising now, David, the median wages, I'm not sure it's entirely fair to put that on this administration or any administration. We see that corporations are doing pretty well these days. We see that the top 10% is doing better than ever. Is it possible that we unfairly place the blame on the president when it belongs on business who refuse to pay a better wage?
Well, Mike, after 6 years, people tend to blame the guy in charge. The Reagan, this has just been a terrible recovery, by the way. And when you compare it to the Reagan recovery, look at this. We had 7.3% growth after the recession, 4.8%. Now switch over to the Obama recovery. It is just pathetic in comparison. And why? I would say it's pretty simple. Under Reagan, you incentivize the economy. Look at the top margin rate. It went down to 28% from 70%. Under Obama, it went up.
Right. And the thing is, David, if you go back to the 30s, the more severe the recession, the faster economic growth is in the subsequent recovery. And the key driver of that is capital formation, spending in plant and equipment. If you go back to the Reagan recovery, spending on plant and equipment was 22% of GDP. It's been only 17% in the Obama recovery. Why? High regulations, higher taxes have thwarted business investment.
EMAC, I'm glad Mike brought up regulation. It's not just the taxes that have gone up under President Obama. It's also regulation.
Yeah, we've had Dodd-Frank, we've had Obamacare, we have the EPA. Listen, only the crank outposts of the liberal left would say this is a great recovery. I mean, this is very slow change we cannot believe in, and I can't believe what's going on. And so, you know, this president will say time and again, well, I inherited a terrible recession. Guess what? 3 of the last 6 presidents inherited bad recessions. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. He inherited a double-dip recession, a banking collapse, Citigroup collapse for the first time, and also double-digit inflation. So this is the only president since Herbert Hoover who responded to an economic collapse by raising aggressively taxes.
Right, Rich, you're increasing the costs of doing business. So, surprise, surprise, there's less business, therefore less jobs. Have I got it right?
You absolutely do, and that's why labor participation, went to another new low of 62+%. That's just abysmal. People on food stamps, now 15% of the population. It was 11% when Obama took office. Disability insurance has now climbed 40% under Obama. Obama taking credit for this recovery off of a really low bar in January 2009 by pure coincidence is like Al Gore taking credit for the invention of internet because he came to office and as vice president in 1993.
John Tamny, I'd love to hear what you think about all this.
Well, I think despite the unemployment number, the economy is actually growing. But what's got to be stressed is that it has nothing to do, or very little to do, with President Obama's economic policies, and a great deal to do with the fact that his presidency essentially ended at the end of 2012. Economies are just individuals, and when gridlock takes shape in Washington, that means politicians aren't able to put up barriers to our natural desire to achieve. There is a slight recovery going on, but it has nothing to do with policy and everything to do with a lack of policy.
That's a very interesting idea. Steve, is it sort of the antimatter answer? Is the only benefits to the economy is the fact they can't do anything in D.C.?
Well, that's very nice, but there's positive things that have to be done, especially on the corporate tax side. We have the highest rates in the Western world. On the personal income tax side, that's a huge disincentive. Obamacare is hurting small businesses. The Fed continues to muck up the credit markets. So there are positive things that have to be done if we're really going to get out of second gear.
Rick, what I don't understand is that both Republicans and Democrats agree to that at least the corporate tax rate is too high. We went from one of the lowest in the world to now the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Why, when both sides agree it's too high, can't it be lowered?
Well, I'm not sure it can't be lowered. I think one of the problems we have with that is that you have to look at the effective tax rate and the tax rate as it's listed. I think we all would agree that very few companies are actually paying that 30-some%. If
Absolutely.
They were, I'd be with you all the way.
And let me just
But the point is that the reason they're not paying is because all these special interests have their special deals in. It's the big companies that don't pay anything.
I agree with that. But you know who else I agreed with quickly? John Tamny. Presidents have less to do with these things than people want to give them credit and deficit.
Guess what? Who the president didn't credit here at all? The Federal Reserve, $21 trillion plus in liquidity, the central bank liquidity hydrants that really, and also government borrowing at teaser rates. It's not such a hard thing to flip the switch on $7 trillion in spending down in slap happy D.C. But listen, I warned back in 2010 about trickle down government. What do we have now? People protesting not getting enough MIC jobs, low paying jobs. The negative rhetoric also out of the presidency is really bad too.
But Mike, go ahead.
You know what? I love John Tamny, and I get what he's saying about the government. But here's the problem. Reagan was a leader, and he acted, and it helped us. The problem right now is mainstream Republicans and mainstream Democrats, there's very little difference between them. They're both big government statists. They love crony capitalism.
John Tamny, I share your distrust of government, but sometimes you do need a leader like Ronald Reagan to knock heads together and say, we have to change our tax structure. It's just, it's killing jobs.
I couldn't agree more. Policy, as Steve points out, Mike points out, matters. If we had the right person in office right now doing the right things with taxes and monetary policy, we would be much better off. But I'll take gridlock if I can't get better policy. I will give President Obama one bit of credit. He did not reappoint Ben Bernanke. That was huge to our economic recovery. Janet Yellen believes the same poison, but she does not have the power. That Bernanke has been a major factor in the revival, at least slightly, of the economy.
Steve, what about leadership? You were right there in you worked for the Reagan administration for a short time. I mean, is there anybody out there who has the oomph, who has the vision to change this thing?
Oh, I think Republican candidates running in 2016 will try to demonstrate that. I know of at least 3 who are thinking of running are going to come up with flat tax proposals of various kinds.
Hold on a second. You can't tease us like that. Who are the 3?
They spoke to me in confidence.
Oh, Steve, come on. You're a journalist. You're a journalist, Steve.
Yeah, so I'll be like a Washington politician and break my word. No, not yet. But so I think positive change is going to come out of 2016. As for Janet Yellen saying that she's better than Ben Bernanke, she may be a different person, but in terms of policy, the Fed is still in a mode of getting more power. They still won't allow credit markets to recover. She's bloating the balance sheet still. So maybe she's better, but that's, again, like comparing the Mets with the Astros. They're not going to make the World Series.
Probably going to end on an up note. Unfortunately, we got to leave it at that. Thank you, Gabe.